Hey, good afternoon, world. It is U.S. Home Talk here live for another show. It is Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon Central Standard Time, and we are back talking about real estate, mortgages, and credit repair, anything dealing with real estate. That's what our show is about. On the show with me today, no stranger, obviously, with the show, Mr. Jason Walgrave with RE/MAX Advantage Plus and the Walgrave Real Estate Group. And we have a special guest with us today. We have the Yoda of real estate, Mr. Steve Perkins, with us, coming from sunny Arizona, and he's gonna fill us with knowledge today here. As always, you can find us on our website at US Home Talk. All of our previous podcasts are there as well. So if you want to listen to any of our previous shows, you can find us on US Home Talk. You can also go to any of your podcast services, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll be able to find us there as well. And if you want to connect with us directly at all, you can message us directly right through ushometalk.com. So visit us there at any time during the week, and go ahead and reach out to us with any questions you guys have or comments on our show. We're also on Facebook Live right now. So our show will be on Facebook Live. If you want to interact with us during the show, if you have a question or a comment, you can go to Facebook Live and just type it right in the comment section there on the feed, and we'll talk about that or answer your question live on our show here. All right, so we really don't have a formal topic today. Today is going to be kind of wherever the conversation goes. I will kind of preface this here. As far as the prediction of mortgage interest rates, I've been predicting where rates are going to go. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Jason Walgrave, all those big brand names in the real estate industry, they have also predicted where interest rates are going to go. I will say this, and I almost hate to admit it, but the one person who has been the closest to predicting it correctly has been the Yoda of real estate.
There we go.
So he's very experienced. He was a licensed agent since when? 72? 71 licensed real estate agent since 71, has owned hundreds of properties before, hundreds of doors, from apartment buildings all the way down to single families and townhomes. Very experienced up here in the Midwest and now down in Arizona where he spends the winters. And so we appreciate you joining, Steve.
Good to be here.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. You guys are looking great.
Good lighting.
I see Jason just for men his beard today, so it looks extra black. That's good. Good job, Jason.
There's no just for men in this beard.
Could you send me some of that, Jason? I need some of
that. So I was asking Steve this morning. I called him just to make sure he could still join the show today. Asked him if he got the blizzard that we got last night, and apparently Arizona doesn't get blizzards.
They don't.
You have to go to the Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen's the only place to get blizzards down there.
They got Dairy Queens in Arizona?
Yeah, they do have Dairy
Queens. They do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not many
nice.
left, but they do.
They do.
So so to get the conversation going here, let's just start with interest rates, right? That, like I said, Steve's been probably the one person who has been the most accurate as far as predicting where rates are going to go. Right now, interest rates sitting in the mid to upper sixes for 1 point. Steve, what's your thoughts here moving forward through the rest of 2025? What do you think is going to happen with rates?
Well, first, just let me preface that by saying, really 6.5 to 7.5, even 8.5% interest. I mean, most of my life and even before that was a fair interest rate. I mean, this idea of thinking that we're going to have, 2s and 3s and 4s again, I think is pretty wishful thinking. I mean, you might be, even a 15-year-old might not ever see that again in their life if they live to be 100, And I guess in Social Security right now, we got some people that are 150 even, and they may see it. But at any rate, so that being said, I think rates will probably stay fairly stable right now. I mean, I don't see a lot of drop. Inflation is a really tough wild animal to tame, and I've seen it throughout my life. And when they loosen up too soon, it comes back with a vengeance, and then we end up paying more with higher interest rates to try to calm it. And that's when we saw, I mean, I was trying to sell real estate in the early 80s when interest rates were 17.5% and 18% for home loans.
Mhm.
I mean,
Unreal.
we're sitting there thinking the world would come to an end if we saw that. Well, I thought the same thing, but it didn't come to an end, but there sure wasn't a lot moving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think that most of the buyers that we're talking to right now, Steve, is I just had a conversation last week and someone that has some purchasing goals for 2025. And he said, where are the rates at? And, I said, well, you're probably mid sixes, for the most part. You can buy them down to high fives or mid fives, depending on how much you want to spend. And he said, oh, he goes mid sixes. He goes, that's not bad. He goes, that's not bad at all. And that was not the reaction I was expecting. I was, cause I'm still, in that mindset of, man, it'd be great to get back to 3 and 4s. I agree with you, Steve. Not going to happen. We're not going to see 3s. We maybe see high 4s under the right circumstances, but my prediction is, I think that they're going to be in the 5s at some point this year. Conventional will be, and when I say 5s, I mean high 5s. It'd be, I think very fortunate to be mid 5s. But days of 3s are gone. 4s are probably gone as well.
Right. Yeah. So if one's thinking of buying out there, I mean, I don't know what is this interest rate really doing to the market, but if you're thinking of purchasing something, and you're going to wait for interest rates to go down, you might be waiting a long, long, long time. I mean, I think, get in now. And then of course, what are we seeing? What's real estate really inflating? I mean, a home without, kind of the same home a year ago, has it gone up 4 or 5%, or?
Yep, about 4.5% in the metro.
4.5%. So when you look at that 4.5% inflation, you're paying, 6.5% on your money. I mean, the interest rate's got to drop. If it goes up 4.5%, it's got to drop down to about 2% before you're going to make any. So that's not going to happen. So buy the home now.
Agree. Yeah, the cost of waiting is significant, and I think that Mike and we talk to people all the time, and they're like, well, I want to wait till next year because I want to save up another $10,000 for down payment, and we go, well, what type of house you looking at? Oh, $400,000 house. And well, dang, that house is going to cost you $16,000 to $20,000 more if you wait a year, based on the last, based on historical appreciation. So you're saving 10, but it's going to cost you an extra 20. Well, that doesn't make any sense, and so, but it's just important to just put it all on the table and go through the numbers and really explain what it means to wait.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I saw a post on Facebook last night. There's like a real estate agent Facebook group that I'm part of. It's across the country. There's probably, a few thousand real estate agents that's on there. And one of the agents said that, hey, my I can't remember who said it. Well, his loan officer, someone said that with the tariffs that Trump is putting in place, we're going to see interest rates down into the 4s by June. And then he asked the group, how can I get ahead of all my prospects so that when that happens, I can reap the benefits. I can take advantage of these 4% interest rates that are coming in June. And I just rolled my eyes, of course, at that. But I mean, as far as having Trump in president now, we got a new president, we have tariffs going into place and things like that. I mean, how do you see that maybe coming into play, down the road here in the near future?
Well, in the long run, I mean, tariffs, if that was a policy, to finance the government like it used to be 100 years ago or so, I mean, the tariffs was a pretty big share of that. That was before we had an income tax too, I mean, 110 years ago. But, so tariff, but I mean, these tend to be negotiating deals. And of course, nobody quite understands, Trump's negotiating style. I mean, he's started the deal, and he uses everything at the table, and he's not afraid to risk some things. And of course, as tariffs are, but it tends to get attention, tends to bring people to the table. So I think the only way you're going to really see interest rates drop is if for some reason we saw something that looked like it was going to be causing a recession. And so the Fed is going to start loosening up and saying, well, we can loosen up and it won't cause inflation because a lot of people are losing their jobs or something like that happening. This looks like we're on a recessionary trend. That's the only thing that's going to lead to much lower interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be right. We may see, these tariffs, as the president said last night, it's going to be a little uncomfortable for a little while here. And that's true. But whenever you're negotiating any deal, it's a little uncomfortable. And I'm sure you see that, Jason, in the real estate thing. Sometimes it gets a little testy, right? In negotiations. Many times.
I would say, Steve, more times than not, negotiating, a deal is uncomfortable, and depending on, the mindset of, the person or persons on the other side of the table, it can be very uncomfortable, and so, that's a great point to bring up.
And then sometimes, somebody forgot to take a beautiful, air conditioner or something that they had that they really wanted to keep, and they forgot to take that out of the house. And so the new buyer comes in and says, no, I want that air conditioner. And then, no, you can't have that air conditioner. Right. And it goes back and forth. And as an agent, you're sitting in the middle and think, gosh, here we got a $500,000 deal being hung up on a $800 air conditioner.
Yeah. Typically in those situations, Steve, I just buy the air conditioner.
Right.
But strategy. But I will give you an example. We've got a deal right now where listing of ours, and we got it. It's all negotiated. It's through inspection. It's all done. And originally in the offering, the sellers were offering a fair amount of personal property. Probably $10,000 worth. And the offer that came in was not list price, was not asking price, and that offer did not include any of that personal property. So we're through the deal, and now we're moving towards closing here pretty soon. And the seller goes on Facebook Marketplace and posts all the furniture, all the personal property for sale. So I get a text message from the listing agent. Oh, hey, or the buyer's agent rather. Oh, hey, my buyers just wanted to make sure that all that personal property was staying in the house. They noticed some of it on Facebook Marketplace for sale, and I saw the text, and of course it's one of those, they don't really make you feel good text messages. No. So, I looked at it and I gave it a few moments and I just replied and I said, hey, one of the main reasons your offer was accepted was because your buyer didn't include those personal property items in the offer. Unfortunately, they're not staying with the house. And she responded, right away. I understand. I appreciate, the update, and that was it. But it's, it was. I didn't know how it was going to go. And what I think happened, and I don't know for sure, but what I think happened is that buyer's agent set the expectation with her buyers that those items were staying with the house.
Sure.
And but if it's not in the purchase agreement, it's not staying in the house. I mean, it's got it, and that's why we have contracts. That's right. Why we have purchase agreements to refer back to what's in writing, what's agreed to in writing, and that's what stands. So, fortunately, it didn't get out of hand, but things like that do come up.
Well, that can happen, and then sometimes in a negotiating strategy, it's kind of like, oh, let's try a second bite at the apple or a third bite at the apple. Yes. And sometimes, you'll actually get to chew the bite.
Yes.
Yeah. And doesn't hurt to try, and that's negotiators that negotiate those Correct. Types of things. So
yes,
and a lot of people don't quite understand that. It looks pretty like this thing with over the Ukraine looked like, oh my goodness, it blows up and whatever. Well, that does happen sometimes. I've had negotiations that have literally blown up. We came back, we got a deal, but at the time it was just something that maybe had to happen because people, it was a pretty tough deal. But at any rate, so interest rates, what are you thinking, Mike?
Yeah, Mike, you're the mortgage guy. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Well, so going to the negotiation thing real quick, I was going to make a comment. My kids are pretty good at that. You know, how many no's do they got to get through before they get a yes? That's like,
They have
Dad, can I
10
do this?
yeses.
No. Dad, can I have this? No. 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 It's like they keep, I mean,
I think they learned that from you, though.
maybe I probably did. You know, it's like, are they got a contest to see how many no's they can get before they get the yes to come out? Like, leave me alone, kids. I told you no 14 times already.
Go try mine.
So, so as far as interest rates going, I figured they would just slowly trickle down, right? So I figured they would slowly trickle down, and at the end of the year, I think we're going to be hovering right around 6. So I figured 6% to 6.25 is kind of going to be the new benchmark. We're not obviously there yet, and that's probably for 1 point too, right? So that's with 1 point being included, you know, in your fees there, but.
Okay.
That's what I think. I think it's just going to be a slow trickle down. I don't see anything, you know, who knows, right? World War III could break out. You know, the government could pump money in the mortgage-backed securities market and just say, hey, we're going to start buying, you know, mortgage-backed securities again. You know, and that pumps a bunch of liquidity in our market. And now we'll see rates, you know, drop a full percent within probably a couple months after, you know, an announcement like that would happen. So barring outside of anything like that happening, I think it's just going to be a slow trickle down, and we're going to be at 6 to 6.25.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
Well,
one thing
that's probably a good logic, particularly if the economy stays, you know, kind of the way it is, and these tariffs will have a little negative effect, and so, you know, we probably aren't going to see too much, but just watch those inflation numbers, and the Fed, I think, is showing that they're going to be pretty resistant to lowering rates further until they start to see some movement, you know, on the inflation side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one comment you made, Steve, was about appreciation. Like, how's the appreciation looking up here? Our markets, I know, are different because I do hear some stuff down there. So, you know, if we go back to when in October of 2022, when rates hit 7%, right? So in January of 2022, we were still at 3%. October of 2022, we got rates at 7. Okay. 10 months, we went from 3% to 7%. Everyone's just like, whoa, what's going on here? And that's when all the talks of like, oh, interest rates is high, home prices are going to come down. They have to, right? This and that. Well, if you look at appreciation, especially if we look in our market, because, you know, Jason and I are up here in the Minneapolis market, so we know it very well. Home prices never came down. Right. You have your seasonal stuff, right, that ebbs and flows a little bit because the winter's a little bit slower. So maybe you see some price drops during the winter. But overall, year over year, our appreciation has been, you know, 3.5% to 5% ever since rate hit 7. You know, in October of 2023, we were at 8.5% for a 30-year fix on an interest rate. Right. And that's when everyone was really like, oh, yeah, here it comes. Right. We're going to have this glut of inventory that comes on, and it's going to be, you know, home prices are going to drop and stuff. Weird. They never dropped, right? And it's because of our inventory level. And we spoke about this on previous shows. If you look at the last 4 decades, you know, if you look at the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, we were building anywhere between 20 and 25 million homes per year during those decades. From 2010 to 2020, we only built 5.4 million.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just don't have the inventory for home prices to come back down. So even if rates do happen to go up again for some reason, where we're pushing that 7.25 to 7.5, even maybe 8%, I still don't see home prices coming down because we don't have the inventory to do it.
Well, and the other thing that keeps them up is the replacement costs of homes. And you know, we mentioned the big T word, the tariff word, and of course we're going to see some, you know, tariffs on lumber, and well, what builds houses but lumber, and some metals, and all of these types of things. So if we see some prices going up, and as well as just plain regulations and all the talk about reducing regulations, I think if anybody can push it down, probably Trump can. But a lot of those are local decisions that are made by, you know, zoning and laws. And so as houses get more expensive, that's got to drag up the existing stock, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what have you seen down there? Have you seen, I've heard of like some it's like where inventory has gone up in Arizona, like, you know, in the Phoenix kind of metro area, like where inventory actually did come up, where home prices maybe were starting to pull back a little bit. Have you seen that at all down there?
have definitely seen. I mean, inventory has come up. Days on market has gone up. Are now up to like 60, 75 days on the market or so. Where
Hmm.
a year ago, boy, it was down more like 20 to 30. I mean, it was kind of like put it
Wow.
on and it was gone.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe so. Yes, we've seen that, but inflation is still there. I mean, it's cooled down somewhat, but and of course, some people, I think, when they list, and I don't know if the new the whole settlement in the real estate thing has changed things a little bit, Jason. But it seems back when I was in the business, we used to see some of these real estate agents out there that maybe weren't the most professional would come out and they would what we would call buy the listing. So, oh yes, Jason, Mike, your house is worth $850,000, and really it's maybe only worth 725, but it makes you feel good. But the only problem is they aren't buying it. They're not going to buy it, and it's not going to sell at 850, so the price comes down. We have seen some of that, I think, where prices were, boy, it comes on the market, and I see a house, and I think, wow, it's not going to bring that. But I mean, and sure enough, in 60 days, it's down 10%. And then when they actually sell, it's at 5% under that. So
Yeah, that is buying the listing, isn't it? So we read some stats last week, Steve. So last year in the U.S., I think there's approximately 1 million licensed real estate agents in the United States. Last year, 74% of them sold 0 homes.
Wow.
And only 2% of them, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Only 2% of them sold more than 20 homes last year. And so, I mean, these are incredible stats. And so we talk about how important it is, how so very important it is that you're doing your research on who you're partnering with, on who you're hiring as a listing agent and a buyer's agent. And, do they have the experience? Do they have the proven track record? And can they represent your best interest? And so, lots of options to choose from, and this goes on the mortgage side as well. Lots of options to choose from, but quite frankly, there's not that many great options to choose from.
That says a lot, though, Jason. And I've seen that. I don't know what the data was back, 50 years ago, but it was a lot that way too, where there were a lot of people in this business that really didn't know too much about it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always saw is kind of funny is this. I mean, let's say you're looking at, you need an operation. You need, it doesn't even have to be a heart bypass. You're going to have a hernia repair or something like that.
Yeah.
And are you going to go to the doctor that, well, I've kind of read about this, and I've done 5 of these, and but in the last year I really didn't do too many. Or the next time you get on an airliner, are you gonna want the pilot that says, hey, I'm just fresh out of school here. I'm still learning a lot, but we'll get through this. No, it doesn't cost anymore. You might as well go with the person that's got good experience and is really going to represent you and be able to go through thick and thin. And even if it costs a little bit more, I mean, you're talking about a $500,000-$600,000 house, and you might be looking at $1,000 or $2,000. I mean,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then the question is even if it does cost you a little bit more in commissions, for example, well, how much more are you going to net? Because that agent has a plan and has a strategy on how to sell your home for the highest amount in the quickest time. So it's important to look at the big picture and yeah, I mean, if I need an operation, I don't want to go to the guy that, has been part-time for the last 5 years or gal.
Well, and I used to have problems, with in the mortgage market, because I think there's people in the mortgage business that they're just about assembling and throwing stuff together. And if it falls through, it falls through. And they don't really know a lot about what they're doing or have a lot of expertise. And so, we never know in life, whether tomorrow is going to bring an accident or a health problem, or in a real estate deal, you don't know what's going to come up, or a mortgage thing. There could be something that pops up. Boy, you want to have people that got experience with it. You want a good pilot up in that cockpit.
Yeah.
That's flying that airplane when you have a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I want you as my pilot, Steve. I'll take you as my pilot.
Well, that's one thing. I got 4,500 hours in over the last 50 some years, and there's still not a time that I get into and fly the airplane. I still always learn something from every flight.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
You never know it all.
Nope.
I remember one of the first times you took me up in your in one of your plane. I don't think it was a Cessna. I think it was, I can't remember the first one there. I must have been 16 years old in Laverne. Steve takes me up to about 10,000 feet, and then he shuts the engine off and says, "Hey, see if you can float it down." Okay.
The story might be embellished just a little, but
I'm pretty sure I remember. It's like we're up there and it's just like, "Hey, we're gonna turn the engine off. Just here's the controls. And see if you can float it down." I'm like, "Okay." Where's the eject button on this thing? You got the handle,
where's the eject button.
You have any parachutes on board this?
right?
Oh no! So go with experience. Go with training. Go with the people, particularly when it doesn't cost me. And I think buying homes, that's probably many people. That's kind of the biggest thing in life that they'll ever buy.
It is. Yeah.
Biggest business decision that they're ever going to have, and you want a good team.
Yes.
So
yeah, absolutely. Steve, right. What do you think? So you're down there in Arizona. Obviously, you live up here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota during the summertime. So you kind of go back and forth year over year.
You never want to get those mixed up where you're in Sioux Falls in the winter and then in Arizona in the summer.
Yeah, that would have been a really costly mistake last night with what rolled
through. Told me that.
Did Sioux Falls get any snow, Jason? Do you know? Did they get snow?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
My friend said no, not really. Very little.
I mean, we got plenty up here. We got lots of snow. Go to my Facebook page if you guys want to see it. Go to Michael Overson on Facebook, and I took a kind of video series. So last night when it started snowing, and then a couple hours, and then a couple more hours, and then I went up this morning, took another video. I mean, one of the snow drifts was just as tall as my four-wheeler when I was plowing this morning. So we got our fair share last night, that's for sure. As far as new construction goes, though, what are you seeing for new construction down there in Steve, Arizona? I mean, is it still booming down there, or?
It has slowed down some. You're still seeing a lot of multifamily coming on. I sometimes wonder where in the world all these people are going to be coming from. That they're going to be living in these things, because I've been in that business, and I know you don't build these unless you know that you're pretty darn sure that you can rent them. And,
right.
But you do see new home construction is dropping. And the valley here is growing leaps and bounds. I mean, by the valley, I mean the Phoenix area continues to really grow at one of the most rapidly growing areas in the whole country. And a lot of Californians, trying to get out of there, they're coming over, and just others for the climate, and tends to be a pretty good growing economy too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing more commercial, like apartment, like rental type of situations right now. You'd say it was
multifamily, right. That tends to be. I mean, there's still a number that are being constructed, but it isn't like it was. I mean, a year ago. I mean, a year ago you could drive any direction you wanted to go, and in several mile or even a mile or two, and you'd run across some big multifamily project, and there was usually some home. New home construction going on too, developments. So,
have you seen any 3D? Have you noticed? Have you seen any like 3D printers down there making foundation stuff for homes at all?
I haven't seen that. No.
Marcus brought that up in one of our shows before. They actually have like 3D printers now that basically use concrete. So you upload the stuff in a computer program, and they have these machines that will take that, right? And then they 3D print. So they just take concrete, and they're just going around and building this foundation with the machine, versus actually like having humans, pour it in forms and stuff like that.
And walls and everything they build. I mean, you got to add your roof trusses on, but it's the whole house. It's incredible. Steve, do you guys have any tiny home communities or container home communities or any of that?
Well, there's been some discussion about that. I mean, I've heard this whole affordable housing thing, and Phoenix is looking at how do we get housing to be affordable. And that's just a tough thing. I mean, there's just so much cost that you have to really get into a home. But when you look at new technology, I mean, if anybody can do it, America can come up with ways to do it. But then you have to allow the regulatory system to come in and both zoning. I mean, so tiny homes, no, you don't want to. They can be in your neighborhood, Jason, but not in mine. Type of thing. And so that regulation gets in there, as well as new codes and the new ideas that we've got to put things in, and they aren't necessarily bad, but they do add the cost to it. So
sure.
But I haven't seen that directly in Arizona. How in Minnesota are you seeing?
No, I mean we're seeing secondary, living dwellings, or where people are building basically a tiny home in their backyard, and so they can use that for mother-in-law or father-in-law, or or a rental unit. And so Minneapolis is, and I think St. Paul, but Minneapolis for sure in the last number of years have been allowing these, basically your 2-car detached garage that you access through the alley, and then above that is a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And so we're seeing that. But no, I haven't seen any tiny home communities. I think the biggest thing is exactly what you just said, Steve. Cities are like, no, that we don't want it. We don't.
If you recall, too, the federal government was actually mandating this, I think, back under the Obama administration, and then Trump kind of did it. And I don't know, I think the Biden administration might have tried that, too, a little bit. But I look at those things maybe coming out. I don't think the federal government will be trying to tell local governments that they have to do these things if you're going to get
sure.
These, which might be a little bit less. So, but yeah, it is a tough situation, and of course, you still want to promote home ownership. I mean, it still is a basic to the American dream. I hope we never lose that. And so if we can get more new construction, obviously people will move up and live in those. That's the most affordable housing is the existing housing stock that we've got out there.
Right.
Yeah. If tiny homes are, more, I suppose those would be considered unique properties now, because there's not that many out there. There's some out there, but like the conventional loans, Fannie and Freddie, they don't finance tiny homes. Right. So that's probably another part of the reason too, is like if in the government, right, the government is Fannie and Freddie. That's a government sponsored enterprise. The government is basically Fannie and Freddie. So if you want to be able to get a standard conventional loan or even an FHA loan on a tiny house, they would have to allow conventional loans and allow FHA financing for those types of properties when they don't right now.
Right.
So that's another hurdle, that people would have to overcome. Either you got to pay cash, or maybe you're doing some portfolio loan through a local bank or something like that, to get those types of properties.
Or you're relying on some government grant and to fund this type of a loan. And yeah, that's a very good point, Mike. You just can't. And if you don't have money, it's not going to happen until that happens.
Yep. Very true.
So
what else do you see? So what's just overall general real estate here? Still a good time to buy? Do you wait? What should people do here if they're on the fence?
I think it's a pretty good, when you look at those, and very often, you'll send me, and Jason, I'm on your email list too, and I see that, what's the balance level, and right now it seems to be more in the middle, so it's not really a super buyer's market, and it's not a super seller's market, and so that's probably a pretty good time to buy. I mean, I've never learned. I mean, that you trying to time the market, that's a big thing in stock investment and things. We're going to time the market. We're going to buy when it's low and then sell when it's high. Well, I can tell you, after a number of years of being in the market, that doesn't work very well. There are so many conditions that determine the market, and nobody really knows what's going to happen in the future. I mean, and so in fact, the best reflection of what's going to happen in the future is the market. People with money, not just opinions, but actually putting money behind their opinions, going into a marketplace, and you got buyers and sellers, and that's probably the best determination as to what's going to happen, not just today, but in the future. Because if there's a lot of optimism out there with people with money, well, then they're going to be bidding prices are going up then. I don't care whether you're buying a loaf of bread or whatever. I mean, look at eggs, the supply of eggs went down, so the price went up,
Yeah.
But
very true.
so, it's a good time I think, to buy right now in a balanced market. Again, buying within your means, buying because you need a home, investment opportunity. There's certainly available things in rental property, I think, and that's a good time and looking at that. And it all depends on your financing and the ability to put it together, and does the deal work?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very good. Yeah. When people ask me that question, like, is it a good time to buy? I take it as, do I buy today or do I buy a year from now? Right. Because people who are in a lease, it's usually a 12-month lease, right? It's like, okay, I have a lease coming due in 2 months. I can either renew that lease for another 12 months or I can buy a house. So I always echo that. They're like, well, is it a good time to buy now? And I said, well, if the question you're asking is, I have the ability to buy now, so should I buy now or should I sign another 12-month lease and buy a year from now? I truly believe you're going to be paying more a year from now, and this is why, and show them how our inventory levels have stayed low, how even through these higher interest rates that we've seen, that home prices have continued to go up, and it's going to repeat itself, and we're going to have a shortage of inventory for several years yet. So I point that out, and usually the light bulb goes off at that point, for them to say, okay, if I have the ability now, I can save myself some money, acting now versus waiting.
And maybe the better question would be, is rather than asking if the market's ready, that I should buy, maybe they should ask, hey, is personally, are we able to buy? I mean, maybe we got the car is shot and we're going to have to buy a new car. Well, that, if you got that on the market, plus a new house, plus, if a baby's coming or something like that, again, depending on your financial circumstances, is just knowing that and making sure it's the right time for you, because when it comes time to get the financing, you're gonna be asking them all sorts of questions, right?
Yep. Blood samples, DNA tests, we're gonna retina scan, all that stuff. We send one of those in-home care nurses out there to collect the hair follicle samples and all that stuff, so you can get a mortgage these days. So
fingernail clippings.
Yeah.
If they're a really high risk buyer, maybe a piece of their pinky.
Their Facebook and whatever. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you.
People, the best time to buy is when you're ready to buy and you can financially afford to do it and it fits into your plan. I mean, to just buy a home is not any smarter than, that would be a dumb reason to do it, but it fits in. You need a home. Mm-hmm. And remember, as my dad used to say, he was in real estate too. And Mike, you remember Grandpa, and he was, whether you rent or whether you buy, you pay for the home you occupy, and that's kind of a little rhymey cliche thing, but it is true.
It's true.
Having been in the rental business, I certainly wasn't in there because I wanted to donate to people, and so rent was paying the bill. And there's times to rent, and then there's times to buy. So
I love it.
Hey, well, thanks for joining the show today, Steve-O. We appreciate it.
I'll get a headset.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, next time grab a headset. So we'll be back next Wednesday with another live show, US Home Talk here. On behalf of Jason Walgrave and myself, Mike Overson, we appreciate you guys listening. And we'll be back next Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central with another live show. Have a great week.